Part 128. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 1271. Chapter 1271 Gujinsi is coming back. According to Gongqin Li's personality, anyone who can hang around her for a whole day without incident must be someone she doesn't dislike. Nangong Luo is full of fighting spirit. The two of them talked for a few words, and Yi hesitated slightly and said, "Well, there's something I want to tell you." "What?" "Don't be hesitant when speaking. If you have something to say, just say it." "Your brother, I can stand it." Gujinsi is coming back. Both of them held up their mobile phones, but Nangong Luo was silent for at least 10 seconds. Ye Wei told him, "I heard Brother Chen talking to Gujinsi just now, saying that he was going back to China." "When?" "Just in these 2 days." The atmosphere suddenly became a little solemn. Ye Wei cleared his throat and told him deliberately, "Brother Nangong, hold on tight, our family has your strong backing and we will definitely support you." Nangong Luo refused to admit defeat. "Tisk, you underestimate me too much, and I'm not afraid of him." "Are you really not afraid?" "Absolutely true." Hearing Nangong Luo's affirmative tone, Ye Wei nodded to himself, "Okay, come on, I will keep an eye on it for you. Remember to provide me with more information, that's the enemy's information, the enemy's information. It must be a love rival." Yes, only sharp finishing attack struck Nangong Luo's heart with one knife. After ending the call, Nangong Luo stood by the window and thought deeply, scratching his hair for a while. "What am I afraid of? We haven't been together for 4 years abroad, what can we do with him now? What does Gujinsi mean? He goes abroad and comes back. Doesn't he really have a crush on that girl Li Yulai?" Nangong Luo stood at the window asking and answering questions, and finally walked back around. 2 days later, Gujinsi's plane landed. Gujinsi has a deep scheming mind. He and Yezikin had been friends before, and they had always maintained a cooperative relationship. In short, it was a very complicated relationship that was difficult to understand. The relationship between Gujinsi and Yezikin can be described in 4 words: a close relationship. Yezikin went to pick her up in person, and Ye Wei naturally took the 2 children to show off. Gujinsi left for a foreign country when the 2 children had no memory. During this period, they did not have as close contact with each other as Gongqin Li and Ye Wei, so the 2 children were very unfamiliar with him. Ye only asked them to call Uncle Gu, and the 2 children greeted them politely, "Hello, Uncle Gu." Gujinsi still had the same iceberg face that had remained unchanged for thousands of years, but this time he was very smart and stuffed a small gift for each of the 2 children. "Thank you, Uncle Gu." The 2 children accepted the small gifts after getting their parents' consent, and their affection for Gujinsi instantly increased. Ye Wei secretly made a note to Gujinsi, "Once you go abroad, you know how to bribe people better. Be careful." Along the way, the 2 children were full of curiosity about Gujinsi. "Uncle Gu, are you a doctor? Uncle Gu, are you also a good friend of Daddy and Mommy? Uncle Gu, why haven't we seen you before? One child is noisy enough, but 2 together will cause more problems." Gujinsi is a person who is not good at words. He cherishes his words like gold, and he has little patience with children. Ye Wei raised his hand to signal to the 2 children, who immediately shut up. "Brother Gu, when you return to China this time, are you just coming back for a visit or do you plan to stay for a long time?" "Stay at home." "Huh. It seems that something is going on." End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 1272. Chapter 1272 Betrayal of Biological Father. "Come on, we can't continue talking today. The two children covered their mouths and laughed when they saw their mother's deflated appearance. Yezhi couldn't bear to lose face, so he pulled the two children away and stayed far away from him. What kind of person is this? He can't even speak. Mommy, does your Uncle Gu have a grudge? Ye Qingfeng said in a surprising way. Ye Weiwei grabbed his ear and said, "Hey, you can see all this, your eyes are so sharp." Ye Qingfeng, who was bold and not afraid of death, said straightforwardly, "I heard it all, and you always called him by his name, Gu Jinsi." Ye Weiwei sighed softly, okay, kids, don't talk nonsense." Ye Qingfeng made a naughty face at her, pulled her younger sister Yezhiruo and ran away. The relationship between Ye Weiwei and Gu Jinsi is complicated. The two of them disliked each other since they met. Later, because of Yezikin's relationship, the two of them got along peacefully for several years. They could be considered friends, but they couldn't get along with each other at all. 4 years ago, the relationship between the two was pretty good. Now it's been 4 years, come on. It's not as pleasing to the eyes as before. Ye Weiwei has never wanted to please Yezikin, and now he chooses to side with Nangang Luo without hesitation. Gu Jinsi, you ignore me, I don't even bother to greet you. If it weren't for helping Nangang Luo find out about the enemy, she wouldn't bother to talk to Gu Jinsi. Gu Jinsi went directly to Ye's house with them, but after entering the gate, Yezikin went to stay in the study. Ye Weiwei initially brought 2 cups of tea, and then waited outside for half an hour without waiting for anyone inside to come out. Ye Qingfeng poked his head out from behind Ye Weiwei, "Mommy, have you fallen out of favor? What are you talking about, you naughty kid? It's how it's done in TV series. Even my son's words were so sharp and to the point, I've never done anything like this before. Let's go, don't stand here." Ye Yi took his son away from the study door with half a pull, and rushed to Yezhiruo's room to let the brother and sister stay together. Yezhiruo was practicing writing stroke by stroke, and Ye Weiwei took a closer look. This child was serious and careful in his work, and he also wrote very beautifully according to the copybook. Ye Weiwei couldn't help but praise, "Yezhiruo is so awesome, the writing is so beautiful." "Thank you, Mommy." Yezhiruo accepted the compliment calmly. She turned to look at her brother and asked kindly, "Brother, have you finished your homework?" Ye Qingfeng subconsciously lowered his eyes and glanced sideways to the lower right, and replied sonorously, "It's done." Oh. Yezhiruo nodded, picked up the pen and continued to practice calligraphy on the copybook. Ye Weiwei hummed twice and stretched out his palm to his son, "It's done, right? Bring your homework to check." When Ye Qingfeng heard this, she shook her head like a rattle, "Mommy, I've packed up my homework. It's so troublesome to take it out." "Really? It doesn't matter. Mommy will read it by herself. After reading it, she will put it back for you exactly as it is." "No, no, no, no need. Yes, as a mother, I need to pay more attention to you, especially you. You are the precious son I am most worried about." Even Yezhiruo, who was next to him, could feel the hidden danger in his smile. He picked up his copybook and moved a few steps aside to avoid harming himself. The only subtext of the night, "You, especially, are the least worrying." Ye Qingfeng immediately surrendered, "Mommy, I was wrong. Can I tell you something about Daddy in exchange?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1273. Chapter 1273. The Love Letter Collected by Yezikin. Oh, if you want to negotiate terms with me, you have to see if the amount of information you give is enough. Ye Qingfeng hooked her fingers at Qiao Yuwei, stood on tiptoes and pretended to be mysterious, telling her, I found out that someone confessed to daddy. Isn't this normal? Your daddy is so handsome, isn't he? Mommy, you're not jealous. Well, if I get jealous even if someone hands me a love letter, then our whole family can switch to being jealous. Ye Qingfeng didn't expect that what he thought was the big news turned out to be so dull after Ye Weiwei found out about it. Ye Qingfeng scratched his head. As a younger sister, Yezhiruo stepped forward and helped her brother to add, "It's a love letter and audio confession." Oh, mommy. What? Ye Weiwei frowned, feeling something strange in his heart. Love letters and voices? Why does it feel like this is something she has done before? Ye Qingfeng also remembered and added, and it was collected by daddy. Ye Wei had a bad premonition in his heart, and suddenly he understood what the love letters and voices said by the two children were about. The people who have confessed to Yezikin in various ways have been since childhood, but if the love letters and voice messages are collected by Yezikin, then she is the only one. She is now a mother, how could she expose such childish things she did back then? This matter is a bit complicated. You also know that your daddy is too good and has too many suitors. Of course, love letters are not a problem, but it is not good to reject others in person, so I took it back and put it away casually. Stocked up. She said a series of words, and finally her logic was confused. In short, children should not talk about the loss of adults at will, you know. Whose child talks about love letters and relationships every day? You are a precocious child. It means I'm smart. Smart, smart, you don't do your homework, Ang, are you going to rebel? Ye Weiwei took a step toward him, frightening Ye Qingfeng so much that he ran away. Mommy, I'm going to do my homework. The noisy monkey child left, leaving behind the well-behaved and quiet Yezhiruo. The atmosphere on the scene was much more harmonious. What's the matter, mommy? Tell mommy, how did you and your brother know about love letters and recordings? My brother told me. Then how did your brother know? Yezhiruo raised her index finger and made a small gesture beside her mouth. Ruruo can't betray my brother. Oh, I worked so hard to raise you so big, but I don't even want to tell mommy the truth. What if your daddy really likes to receive love letters and abandons mommy in the end? Daddy can't. Then if you tell mommy where you hide the things, is that okay? Well. Yezhiruo really struggled for a while, and finally said, it's in the middle of the first row, sixth row, of the third cabinet on the right side of the study. Wait a minute, speak slower, mommy has forgotten. In the middle of the first row, sixth row, of the third cabinet on the right side of the study. Ye Weiwei's academic performance was not very good at first, and he relied entirely on hard work to improve. Only now did he realize that his memory is not even comparable to that of a 4-year-old child. After asking Yezhiruo about the location of the love letter, Ye Weiwei had a plan in mind. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1274. Chapter 1274. Gu Jinsi comes back to find Li Yulai. She ran outside Yezikin's study and secretly opened a small crack in the door. Who knew that Yezikin's eyes were so sharp that he looked directly at her face to face? Ye Weiwei quickly exited and kindly helped them close the door. Ye Weiwei stood in the corridor outside, thinking about the love letter until his heart ached. The love letters she wrote and the recordings she read were all hidden by Yezikin. She always wanted to destroy them but couldn't find them. Because Yezikin's bookcase was too big, she never thought of searching there. This time she finally knew the location of the love letter. She must find the right moment to find it and destroy it, so that Yezikin would not always have the dark history of her past in his hands. Are you coming back this time or going to the hospital? Well, I will completely take over the Gu family's affairs this time. Gu Li has changed a lot in the past few years since you were away. Now that you are back, the Gu family will be relieved. The responsibilities of a family always need to be shouldered by someone. The reason Guchensi seems to have no desires is because even he himself doesn't know what he cares about and what he wants. Although Gu Li is his biological brother from the same father and mother, their personalities are completely different. Gu Li has an extroverted personality and usually seems to be indifferent, but when he really encounters something, he has his own opinions. After Gu Li took the exam, he went to join the army against the advice of his family. He said that his ambition was to become a real soldier. Some people gave up medicine to pursue literature, but he gave up medicine and joined the army to live the life he wanted. At that time, Guchensi was abroad, and it seemed that in the end it was Guchensi who helped to say something, and the Gu family really agreed to let Gu Li choose what he liked to do. Does your return this time have something to do with Li Yulai? Chen, I don't know when you became like Xiao Lian. The implication is that he is still nosy. Guchensi's knife and mouth are sharper than anyone else, and a single word is equivalent to a slash. Fortunately, Yezikin has a strong psychological quality and has already become accustomed to the communication mode between the two. So he remained calm as usual. And there is no need to answer in words, Guchensi's reaction has already revealed his answer. Ye Weiwei, who was close to the door, vaguely heard the two men mentioning Gongqin Li's affairs, and thought to himself, this Guchensi is definitely here for Li Yulai. She ignored the matter of destroying the love letter and went downstairs to call Nangong Luo for warning. Guchensi is at my house now. I heard them mention the name Lu Li in the study. Pay attention and speed up to get Lu Li. Don't worry, it's no problem. What he will definitely win is a matter of time. Ye Weiwei made a new cup of tea upstairs, but Yezikin and Guchensi had already walked out and went downstairs one after another. Hey, do you two want to eat anything? It's almost dinner time, so I'm going to find someone to do it for you. No thanks. Guchensi refused simply, nodded to the couple and left. Ye Weiwei made a face at his back. Who are you? You don't appreciate your kindness. Okay, why are you still acting like a child? Are you mocking my naivete from the side? No, no, my wife is not allowed to refute what she said. Yezikin put his arm around his wife's shoulders and was particularly happy to coax her. Then tell me what Guchensi is doing when he comes back. Oh, look for Li Yulai. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1275. Chapter 1275 Love Rival Meeting. Guchensi is not the kind of person who likes to gather with various relatives and friends to ensure safety after returning home. For him, no matter where he is, he must do things according to his own plan. The second thing Guchensi had to do was to find Gongqin Li. When Gongqin Li took Xiao Yuer back to China, she actually bought a plane ticket and left behind Guchensi's back. At that time, Guchensi was researching new drugs in a closed place, but when he came out half a month later, he found that Gongqin Li had escaped with his daughter. At that time, he had not yet finished dealing with matters abroad, and it took him a while, but now he has finally settled all the matters and returned to China with peace of mind. Guchensi already knew a lot about what happened to Gongqin Li recently when he was abroad. At first Zhong Yun sent him some news, but in the end he and Zhong Yun broke up. The two of them make use of each other, and neither owes anything to the other. It's just that I don't know when and where Zhong Yun got the news of his return to China, and he actually came out halfway. You finally showed up. Zhong Yun stopped Guchensi halfway. When Guchensi saw the unfamiliar woman in front of him, he already understood her identity. Not enough. In Guchensi's eyes, Zhong Yun seemed to be nothing. When Zhong Yun was in front of the road, he chased her away without hesitation. Go away. Many people have seen Guchensi's cold face, and Zhong Yun naturally understands it too. Humph, Guchensi, don't try to burn down the bridge by crossing the river. I don't want to talk nonsense to you, let's go while I still have patience. It was rare for Gujinsi to say such a long list of words, but they were not good words and were meant to slap people in the face. Zhonyun can't lose face. The things Nangang Luo has done recently have already ruined her face, and she has nothing to be stubborn about now. I know your temperament, so don't be too arrogant. Gong Qinli's daughter is Nangang Luo's. Are you also kept in the dark about this matter? Now that you really want to reveal it, you can't wait to rush back to the country? It's a pity that it's too late. You didn't help me at the beginning, and now that Nangang Luo has exposed my fake marriage relationship with him, he has the capital to pursue Gong Qinli. Zhonyun said this long paragraph just to make Gujinsi feel moved, or to see his troubled and flustered expression. But Zhonyun was disappointed. Gujinsi's face still had the same indifference, as if it was always covered with a layer of frost. He asked 4 words, so what? Zhonyun is anxious. She really couldn't understand Gujinsi, who was so unhappy and so secretive that he couldn't see through it at all. Gujinsi, you want Gong Qinli, and I like Nangang Luo. Since the two of them are not together yet, we still have a chance. As long as you are willing, we can cooperate again. Not interested, it is equivalent to answering her, unwilling. Zhonyun clenched her fists. Don't be too arrogant. You are not qualified to negotiate terms with me. Gujinsi finally lost the patience to talk nonsense with her, and started to start the car regardless of Zhonyun standing next to her. Zhonyun, who cherished his life, quickly retreated and watched Gujinsi's vehicle gradually go away. Zhonyun lost her temper when she got home. She pretended to be strong in front of Gujinsi, but in fact she had nothing to do against Gujinsi. Her previous cooperation with Gujinsi was invisible and intangible, and no evidence could be produced. Besides, the Zhone family could not afford to offend the Gu family. Since she couldn't stop him, she led Gujinsi to Nangang Luo. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1276. Chapter 1276. Let's do it. It's a pity that Zhonyun didn't know that Yewei tried his best to promote the marriage between Nangang Luo and Gong Qinli. He had already informed Nangang Luo when Gujinsi went out. Nangang Luo was working overtime at the company today and rushed over immediately after hearing the news. When he passed by, Xiao Yuer was playing at home, but Gong Qinli was nowhere to be seen. Xiao Yuer, where is your mommy? Mommy went to buy meat and said she wanted to make something delicious for Yuer. Yuer, tell daddy, what do you like to eat, can daddy buy it for you next time? No. Xiao Yuer raised her head proudly. Nangang Luo was very sad inside. Xiao Yuer, who used to be so well behaved and considerate, now ignores him since she found out that he is her biological father. She must be angry. Xiao Yuer followed her mother in this, and it was especially difficult to comfort her when she was really angry. For example, Nangang Luo has been chasing the two of them for more than half a month, but they are still rude to him. However, Nangang Luo plans to wait and see here. As long as Gujinsi dares to come, he will dare to drive people away. Xiao Yuer puzzled the puzzle on the floor, and Nangang Luo accompanied her patiently. This drawing is very large, and some of the pictures in the corners even have to be moved to fit in. Nangang Luo lamented that the jigsaw puzzle for a 3-year-old child was so large, so it would be much more interesting. The drawing was very large, and Xiao Yuer soon ran into trouble because she had a small card in her hand and didn't know where to put it. Xiao Yuer stared at the drawing for a long time. Nangang Luo suddenly held her little hand and guided her to put down the card in her hand. Xiao Yuer couldn't see the whole picture and still didn't believe it. Is this here? Your daddy and I used to be a master at puzzles, not to mention a puzzle of just 1 square meter, I can even put it together for you if it's 10 square meters. He said it very proudly. Xiao Yuer couldn't help but cast admiring glances at him. As soon as Gong Qinli stepped through the door, she heard Nangong Luo bragging in front of her daughter, and she almost threw a slipper at him. Stop fooling, Xiao Yuer here. When the father and daughter saw her coming back, they put down the cards in their hands and ran towards her, as if they were competing for favor. Xiao Yuer ran to Gong Qinli. Gong Qinli picked her up naturally, gave her a gentle kiss on the cheek, and then walked forward with her daughter in her arms. Nangong Luo stretched out his hand to hold the air with a sad look on his face. He also wants to kiss, he also wants to hug. As soon as he let out a plaintive cry, Gong Qinli's voice came over him, "Are you going to stand at the door? Why don't you bring the dishes to the kitchen quickly?" Yes. One order made Nangong Luo's energy doubled, as if he had been given a shot of blood. Gong Qinli actually let him enter the kitchen? Does that mean he was allowed to stay by default? Before today, even if he stayed here as a rogue, he would not be able to get a bowl of food, but now he can actually enter the kitchen. Nangong Luo was so excited that he carried the dishes into the kitchen. Gong Qinli put Xiao Yuer outside and let her continue playing with her puzzle. Then she entered the kitchen and closed the kitchen door neatly. Xiao Yuer stared at the closed door for a while, then suddenly covered her mouth and laughed secretly. As soon as Gong Qinli entered the door, she brought a stool to the side of the door, sat down domineeringly, and crossed her legs. Nangong Luo couldn't understand what she meant by this operation. "Lu Li, what do you want? Do it. Do. Bar. Society, my sister." End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1277. Chapter 1277, Secretly Looking at Him. These words are really so imaginative. Gong Qinli saw something from Nangong Luo's expression and frowned instantly. "Hurry up and do it. Do it. Do you think I let you come into the kitchen to play? You are responsible for all the dinner tonight." Nangong Luo's heart felt cold. It turned out that he had thought wrong. "Are you asking me to perform and cook for you here?" "Right. Yes, yes, but why? Yesterday, I heard you mention that her deskmate's father is a chef and the food he makes is delicious. She said she was envious, so today it's your turn to perform. Let's start." Gong Qinli made a pleased to him posture, but the domineering look and eyes guarding the door seemed to tell him, those who don't do it well are doomed. Nangong Luo calmed down and smiled, saying, "It's a great honor to cook for you." This is an opportunity for him to win over Xiao Yuer, and he can't wait for it. Nangong Luo started washing vegetables, while Gong Qinli sat at the door and played with her mobile phone. Nangong Luo would look back at her from time to time, but he always saw her looking at something on her phone instead of paying attention to herself, which made her feel a little disappointed. But he will not be discouraged. Seeing the kitchen filled with oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar, an idea suddenly came to mind. "Li Yulai, which knife should you use to cut vegetables?" "The first one on the left side of the knife slot." "Which side do you want to take the bowl from?" "The dove in the middle on the far right." Gong Qinli would look up at him when answering these questions. Nangong Luo enjoyed it because it felt like he was always communicating with her. As he was about to put the pot in, Nangong Luo turned on the fire and was about to ask, "This oil? Every condiment and commonly used oil and salt are labeled next to it. Don't tell me that the dignified young master of the Nangong family doesn't understand simplified Chinese." When Nangong Luo's question just came out of his mouth, Gong Qinli blocked everything with one sentence. Nangong Luo turned around and looked at the labels with white and black letters, and thought, "Percent. Depend on. Is it so black and white to put oil, salt, sauce, and vinegar at home?" Starting to cook, Nangong Luo wanted to make delicious dishes to please his daughter, so he put away his extra thoughts and concentrated on considering the ingredients and the amount of ingredients. Gong Qinli raised her eyes and looked away from her mobile phone. In fact, this page on the phone has not changed since she entered this room and turned on the phone. Previously, every time Nangang Luo looked back at her, he thought she was looking at her phone. In fact, when a person does something seriously, he will exude his own unique charm. When the noble young master enters the kitchen and rolls up his sleeves and picks up the spatula, there is nothing unconventional about it. Sitting at the door, I looked up and just saw his profile. Nangang Luo's face was originally tender. He had been in society for many years. Even though he was wearing a suit, he looked like he was just over 20 years old. If he changed into a simple t-shirt and went out, he might be recognized as a college student. The sound of the spatula colliding with the pot was particularly clear in the quiet kitchen. Nangang Luo raised his hand and touched his forehead with the back of his hand. He inadvertently looked back towards the door and happened to catch Gong Qinli's sight. Looking at each other, Gong Qinli could hear herself swallowing. The heartbeat is suddenly accelerating, and the bang 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 is obvious. Nangang Luo's handsome face suddenly burst into a smile. "Lu Li, are you attracted by my handsome appearance? Men who cook are really super attractive." End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1278. Chapter 1278 Love Rivals Meet. Nangang Luo's handsome face suddenly burst into a smile. "Lu Li, are you attracted by my handsome appearance?" Ahem, cough cough. Gong Qinli quickly glanced away. "I'm going to see you." I made an excuse, quickly pulled up my chair, opened the door and slipped away. She was still frightened after leaving the kitchen. She patted her chest and took several deep breaths to calm down. Xiao Yuer still stayed where she was and was working the puzzle. Hearing Gong Qinli's footsteps, Xiao Yuer looked up at her and suddenly asked, "Mommy, have you and Daddy reconciled?" Xiao Yuer's name for Nangang Luo changed from uncle to he. Although she has not had close contact with Nangang Luo on the surface, she has already acquiesced in Nangang Luo's identity in private. Xiao Yuer actually really wants a daddy to be by her side. Gong Qinli teased her, "Yuer, your name of daddy is getting easier and smoother the more you say it." Xiao Yuer lowered her head, actually a little shy, and made excuses for herself. "Mommy said that, he is Yuer's daddy." Yuer didn't admit it before, didn't he? "The teacher said that you should be realistic and seek truth from facts." "Yo, my daughter is great, she can use idioms." Just as the mother and daughter were having a pleasant conversation, the doorbell rang. Gong Qinli went to open the door herself, but the moment the door opened, she was shocked. Gu Chenxi stood at the door with a cold and serious expression, as if he was here to collect debt. Fortunately, Gong Qinli knew that he had a 1,000-year iceberg face and wouldn't care if he put on such a bad face. "Dr. Gu, are you back too?" Gu Chenxi stood at the door and didn't say much to anyone. He just glanced inside, and Gong Qinli understood what he meant instantly. "Dr. Gu, please come in." When Gu Chenxi walked into the house, Xiao Yuer also saw him. "Uncle Gu." Xiao Yuer put down the card and ran over. She was a little happy when she saw Gu Chenxi. This is the first time that Xiao Yuer has met an acquaintance from abroad after returning to China. It's like a person who goes abroad feels like meeting compatriots from his motherland abroad. Gu Chenxi was not very close to anyone, but when he saw this child, the expression on his face became much more pleasant. Because this was the child he had personally guarded when she was born, watching her grow up, and because of Gong Qinli's relationship, he took more care of Xiao Yuer. Xiao Yuer's cuteness and thoughtfulness are loved by almost everyone. "Yuer. Uncle Gu, nice to meet you." "Of course, me too." Children can at most express their feelings when seeing him, but no amount of pleasantries can be said. Gu Chenxi glanced at the entire apartment and found that the layout here was very similar to that of foreign countries. You really are still nostalgic, Guchensi said while staring at Gongkin. Everywhere I go, the layout of the environment is similar, as if the place where I live has never changed. Gongkin nodded, I'm used to it, I've always liked it. It seems that there is something in the words. A voice coming from the kitchen interrupted the conversation between the two, the food is served. Freshly baked. Nangong Luo happily brought out a plate of dishes he had just made, and his happy and proud voice suddenly stopped when he saw Guchensi. The rivals in love were extremely jealous when they met. When Nangong Luo saw Guchensi, his eyes looked at each other as if they were destroying the world. No one expected such an embarrassing scene to happen. Gongkin didn't expect Guchensi to show up, and Guchensi didn't expect Nangong Luo to be here. A guest from afar. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1279. Chapter 1279 Gongkin Choice. A guest from afar. Gongkin words brought everyone's thoughts back. Since Dr. Gu is here, let's stay and have dinner together. Nangong Luo was very happy to hear that Gongkin treated Guchensi as a guest, but the next sentence he said was to persuade Guchensi to stay at home for dinner, or was he cooking the food himself? This made him a little annoyed. He gave Gongkin a resentful look, but Gongkin just pretended not to see it. Mommy will take you to wash your hands and get ready for dinner. Xiao Yuer was obedient and stayed away from this invisible war. When the mother and daughter came back after washing their hands, Nangong Luo and Guchensi sat at the dining table, staring at each other face to face. At this moment, there is a solitary dish on the table. Xiao Yuer raised her head and asked doubtfully, Mommy, can you still eat shrimp meat today? Of course. Gongkin gave her a reassuring look, walked calmly to the dining table, paused for a second, and walked straight in the direction of Nangong Luo. It's just one dish. Where's the shrimp meat that Yuer wants to eat? She asked politely. Only a family could use such careless language. Nangong Luo saw his daughter's expectant expression and immediately stood up and expressed his opinion to her daughter, Yuer wants to eat shrimp. Don't worry, Daddy can go and do it for you now, okay? Thank you, Daddy. Xiao Yuer called Guchensi Dr. Daddy in front of him, and Nangong Luo was so happy that he was so happy. If Guchensi hadn't been present, he would have pulled Xiao Yuer and asked him several times whether he heard it wrong just now. Nangong Luo was so happy that he entered the kitchen happily. It's just that Guchensi's situation is not so good. You asked me to hide it for you before, but now you have violated your original wishes. Guchensi looked at Gongkin and spoke in a bad tone. Gongkin replied calmly, people always change. Xiao Yuer couldn't understand what riddles they were playing. She only knew that Mommy had told her when she took her to absorb, Yuer, listen to Mommy now. When you go out in a while, you have to call you Daddy in front of Uncle Gu for Daddy. Why? Although Daddy should be called Daddy, Gongkin special reminder made her very confused. Gongkin told her, Uncle Gu is a guest from afar. You must be polite in front of guests. Don't let others know about your family affairs, otherwise others will think too much. Yuer knows. So Xiao Yuer remembers that from now on she will change her name to Nangong Luo Daddy. And she discovered that Nangong Luo seemed very happy when he heard her call Daddy just now. Xiao Yuer actually wants to make everyone around her happy. Guchensi's face is colder now than before he entered the door, and he seems to be a bit chilly. Gongkin is fearless, and she knows exactly what her actions mean at this moment. She had already understood her feelings 4 years ago, but she didn't expect that when she clearly understood her feelings, Guchensi would be interested in her and follow her abroad. It's not that she understands this way because of her narcissism, but Gu Jinsi once told him personally, I am here because of you. She was frightened at the time. She was alone in a foreign country, and Gu Jinsi had to stay. She couldn't even hide away. Until she found out she was pregnant. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1280. Chapter 1280. In the story of three people, there is always one superfluous one. She was confused and at a loss when she first found out she was pregnant. As a doctor, Gu Jinsi soon noticed something strange about her and advised her not to keep the child. She delayed again and again. Gu Jinsi persuaded her many times, and even took her directly to the hospital again. It happened at that time that she made up her mind to keep the child, and that's when Yor was born. From then on, she became even more wary of Gu Jinsi, but Gu Jinsi suddenly seemed to be relieved and did not mention the matter of asking her to abort the child again. She has been participating in training during that half year, and her results in the later assessment were good. The training has just ended and she is about to give birth. After giving birth to Xiao Yor, she didn't know how to tell her relatives and friends about it, so she stayed abroad for 4 years. During the 4 years, apart from work, she devoted all her attention to Xiao Yor, and was careful not to mention anything about Xiao Yor to anyone. The person she was least sure of was Gu Jinsi, but at that time, Gu Jinsi told her directly that he would not tell people in China about Xiao Yor's affairs. Gu Jinsi once clearly expressed his feelings to her. It was not some sweet words, but said, "You are very interesting and I like it very much." It was as if her character or the things she did just touched Gu Jinsi's heart and made him interested in her, so he wanted to get her. However, Gu Jinsi is a proud man, and even the way he pursues people is very straight. Gong Qinli didn't like procrastination, so she told him clearly and decisively. During the 4 years abroad, the two of them kept in contact, but rarely. Gong Qinli deliberately avoided Gu Jinsi, but Gu Jinsi didn't stalk her or explicitly said she wanted to give up. This time, Nangong Luo just happened to be used to completely extinguish Gu Jinsi's hope. Mommy! Mommy! Ah! Xiao Yor shook her arm and asked, Mommy, Yor wants to go to the kitchen to watch Daddy cooking. Can Mommy go with Yor? Okay, okay. Gong Qinli first agreed to Xiao Yor's words without hesitation, then turned to Gu Jinsi and said, I'm sorry, you have come all the way, and we don't have anything to entertain you at home. Just tell me what you need. I'll do it. First take Yor to the kitchen to have a look. Gong Qinli held Xiao Yor's hand, and out of sight of Gu Jinsi, the mother and daughter made a yeah gesture to each other. Before entering the kitchen, Xiao Yor suddenly stopped and raised her fingers at Gong Qinli. Gong Qinli knelt down and listened, and heard Xiao Yor whispering in her ear, Mommy, I just saw Daddy always looking at us. Gong Qinli. She understands. The mother and daughter suddenly appeared at the door of the kitchen, catching Nangong Luo off guard. Why are you two here? Nangong Luo was surprised and happy. Gong Qinli teased him, oh, isn't there someone who keeps looking over at us? Nangong Luo quickly glanced away, ahem, I'm busy cooking. How are you doing? Good. Just listening to the conversation between the two adults, Xiao Yor was also very curious. Xiao Yor took Gong Qinli's hand and walked to the stove, pointed at the pot of lobster and asked, Daddy, can you do better than Little Fat Daddy? Who is Xiaopang's daddy? Little Fatty is her desk mate. Gong Qinli added an explanation in time. Nangong Luo nodded, very confident, of course, your father and I are the best. The family was enjoying themselves happily, but Gu Jinsi angrily knocked over the teacup. End of this chapter.